How we all doing? How are we all doing today? Villo, let's go. Very nice. Thank you so much, Villo. Easy dub. That makes it all worth a while. Thank you for the 100 Canadian. Maybe one day they'll let me into Canada and I'll spend all this. I'll be able to spend all this that you've sent me. It's been a while since I've made a Metal Gear video, so I'm not imagining a lot of people are going to tune in, but we'll see. I guess I'll just, I'll fill dead air until maybe I figure that the stream's topped out. So what do y'all want me to talk about? What's the latest? Sneak you across the border. I feel pretty experienced in that field. Sneaking and so forth. I've got a rant. I've got a rant ready for Delta. I'll tell you guys what I thought about playing through the story. Some of the side objectives as well. Some of the mini games in there. What I thought about the extra content. If I think it's worth the $70 that... Or is it $80? How much are they charging people now? Is it $80 for a new game? It looks like now 70. So the 70 bucks that they're asking us to put forth. Can't believe that. $90. Damn. $90. That's absolutely crazy. What's up, Werewolf? What's up, man? I guess I'm gonna go ahead and rant. It basically comes down to this. So I actually really thank you. That's why I have these opinions. So I want to, when people say, "Oh, nice opinion," did a YouTuber give it to you? I want to be that YouTuber. Actually, that would make that makes it all worthwhile. But I really did enjoy my playthrough. I think it is a very good looking game. Graphically, the environments, there's really nothing to complain about as far as the environments go. I think some of the character models look better than others. Snake looks crazy. I mean, this might be the best Snake has ever looked in any game ever. I mean, the only competition is naturally maybe Ground Zeroes. Phantom Pain was a good looking game, but I think Ground Zeroes, because it was just one, for the most part, just one setting. It was rainy, it was night, the lights were intentionally placed, and that there was just the most focused, curated vertical slice that we're probably ever going to get out of Metal Gear Solid. And I think that extends as well to the graphics. So it's this Snake versus Ground Zeroes. And I was thinking, because, you know, here's the thing overall with my experience is I obviously love the original MGS3, and I always will. And I think it comes down to, I am just open to new experiences. I'm open. I think even just walking around some of these environments, like walking around Grozny Grad, walking through the field of flowers against the boss, sneaking around all these places, the cabin in the woods, seeing it so visually amped up compared to what it was originally. It's crazy. But the Snake model is a standout. I think one of the areas that honestly, and this is honest, I have a couple of criticisms. What's up, Status? I'm glad you're enjoying it, Issa. But I do feel like some of the models are a little uncanny. I was watching the boss talk, and the close-ups on their mouth movements, the corner of their mouths, it was a little uncanny. And here's the thing is, and this is the reason why, and it's one of the many things in this game that I feel like if you try to critically analyze it, you're going to come to this sort of impasse, because the original game obviously was hand animated as far as the faces. Now there was motion capture done. There were actors who acted out the scenes, and then they used that motion data and applied it to the 3D models, which it seems like for the cutscenes they've pretty much wholly reused all of those here this time. But the faces were hand animated, and obviously with PS2 graphics, you see that. You don't think, oh, this is Uncanny Valley. You think this looks like a 3D animated movie, more or less, right? This time around, they look super realistic. The difference is, to sort of bridge the Uncanny Valley, what video games have done in the time since Metal Gear Solid 3. In fact, it was in Metal Gear Solid 5 when the series started doing it, is if you look at something like the Resident Evil remakes, Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding, Last of Us, all these big games, they basically scan a person's face, a human being's face, and then that kind of just becomes the character model. And at this point, facial capture is a thing where you can apply the twitches in someone's cheeks or how the corner of their mouth moves. And then obviously there's a layer of artistry. But sometimes if you look at Death Stranding, which I think is a fair analogy here, it's just Norman Reedus, it's just Léa Seydoux, etc., etc. But to stay close to the original game, and then also in order to preserve the method in which you adapt Shinkawa's artwork to a 3D model, Shinkawa did not draw, like, Solid Snake is a character. He doesn't look like anyone in particular, at least not by the time of, like, Metal Gear Solid 2 and onward. Kiefer Sutherland did the facial capture for Snake in Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes, but by then they had tweaked it so much that it kind of stopped looking like Kiefer, and he barely even talked in the game, to be honest. So there wasn't really a lot of facial capture you had to do, so Snake could kind of look like anybody. But Ocelot looks like Troy Baker. Quiet is obviously, you know, that is just the physical actual actress who played Quiet, Stephanie Houston. But there's just no doubt about it. I mean, people want to say that the game looks ugly. I just don't. I never looked at the game and was like, this is bad looking. I think there are some environments when it's raining and it's really wet that maybe things look a bit too slick, or maybe they look uniformly slick. It doesn't look like necessarily damp clothing. It kind of just looks like everything is shiny. But That's basically from where I'm sitting. Those are nitpicks. That's just me nitpicking. A big complaint that's making the rounds, because of Digital Foundry mostly, is the subject of this game's frame rate and Unreal Engine 5, etc., etc. But I feel like people don't have either an awareness of historical context, or they're really out of touch, because I went back and I looked up what did Digital Foundry say about similar games. So remakes of classic games, Konami games, etc. So Resident Evil 2 released on the PS4, and they had a lot to say about it. They said that it was limited by the engine, the frame rate was poor, etc. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Silent Hill 2 Remake. I don't have the exact words in front of me. I can probably... Let me pull this up, actually, because I collected some quotes that they said about these remakes here. So this is what they said about the Resident Evil 4 remake. Issues from prior RE Engine console games seem to have returned here, alongside a convoluted set of visual options and other problems. Expect to see reconstruction artifacts, sub 60 FPS performance with no 30 FPS cap option, visual glitches, a strand-based hair option that looks worse than the default, serious image quality issues on PS5, very limited ray tracing, poor and inconsistent option documentation, ugly screen space reflections, and control response problems, among other concerns. Overall, it really feels like the game is missing several thorough QA passes. That's quality assurance. That's what they said about the Resident Evil 4 remake. Now, I'm not going to say that those problems are not present. I didn't play the Resident Evil 4 remake on consoles. That was from their PS5, Xbox Series X review, right? I didn't play RE4 remake on those systems, so I can't say. I'm sure that that's true. And Delta doesn't run perfectly either. Anyone who's played it up till now, including Digital Foundry, are playing the 1.1.1 revision of Delta. Konami, based on feedback from that revision, are already patching. They're already fixing some crashing, etc. They've already given a few bullet points of things they're going to address, and they're going to patch. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of gaming as it exists now. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but, you know, I think it's like, okay, these complaints are valid in a sense. I don't disagree that RE4 Remake had those issues. However, there are issues to purists, and there are issues to the masses. And the goal, typically, of the masses is just have fun for a long enough time. That's what makes them feel like their money's worth, right? They got their money's worth, is if they feel like they've had fun for enough time. And so you look at RE4 Remake as an example. Sold 10 million copies, the fastest selling game in the Resident Evil franchise. And there are a few ways to determine the enjoyment level of the layman, of the masses of a game. And of course, people will say Metacritic has problems, Rotten Tomatoes. There's obviously not going to be an empirical way to read everyone's mind and their truth, etc. But honestly, I think Amazon might be the best way to do it. Those are just normal people leaving reviews. Obviously, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's botting on all these video game reviews, but I believe RE4 Remake had a 4.8 stars out of 5 on Amazon. And then this is what they said about Silent Hill 2 Remake from Konami. This is what Digital Foundry said. It's a shame that current PS5 hardware struggles to keep the 30 FPS mode locked down. Blah, blah, blah. Some room for improvement post-release. So, similarly, complaining about the frame rate, complaining about visual glitches, ugly screen space reflections, etc. Silent Hill 2 Remake in particular gave Konami record high quality quarterly profits for the 2025 fiscal year. Massive success. That also, if I remember correctly, got a 4.8 stars on Amazon. 4.8 stars on Amazon. Resident Evil 2, they said PC patch disappointments is the title of their video. PC patch disappointments. Capcom's ports simply aren't good enough. And then we can also just go right over. Steam has a level of empiricism. I think most people trust Steam reviews. On Steam, the Resident Evil 2 remake, overwhelmingly positive, with around a total of about 48,000 reviews. So I say all that to drive the point home that these criticisms, I'm not saying Digital Foundry have a bias. The fact is they say that about a lot of games. They have these complaints. They have complaints about resolution, internal resolution versus output resolution, frame rate, etc. And it goes without saying, in an ideal world, every game would release perfectly and it would never stutter. Okay? Every game, ever. And there'd be no need to patch anything. However, it's not the world we live in, unfortunately. That is unfortunate, and I think it's fair to point that out. And it is not a good thing. However, the dialogue around this game, and I think basically the only people who have played this game are super fans, right? And super fans are going to be anal retentive. They're going to be particular because the game's not out yet, but you could spend some additional money and play it 2 days early. I found a good Steam key, so I actually spent less than most people are going to spend on it to play it, on its official release. But regardless, when this game gets to the masses, we're going to be seeing 4.8s out of 5s because it still is Metal Gear Solid 3. And that I think ultimately is what that's the most operative quality here. The most operative quality is it's still MGS3. It's the exact same story, the exact same voice acting, the exact same direction, the exact same musical cues, and the exact same game design for the most part. Really, the only overhaul are controls, and I would say some minor game feel. Those are the big differences. And beyond that, there are enhanced graphics. There's just I'm sorry, there's just no way. I don't know. Out of any game I've played, and I've played some good Forest games, I've played some good games with some good interiors. I mean, this game looks incredible. Give me 1 second. It's great. It's a great looking game. And the audio quality is improved as far as the dynamics of the guns, the gunfire, the atmospherics, the wind, the sounds of the forest, the fauna. It's improved from the original game, which was a pretty static, the audio atmospherics in the original game were pretty bare bones. So it's still that game. And many people haven't played it. And a lot more people are going to play it and experience the series. What's going to happen is this game, and it's already gearing up, because here's the fact here, right? Is if you crunch the numbers, Silent Hill 2 Remake sold, I think, over 2 million copies. I was looking at the numbers here because, again, it's a Konami game. It's a Konami remake. It's a beloved game. And I was crunching the numbers here, comparing the two franchises. So, Silent Hill, the whole franchise, has sold up to this day 11.7 million copies worldwide. Silent Hill 2 Remake sold 1 million of those. So essentially, as it came out, it sold as many copies as 1/10 of the entire franchise had ever sold within 3 days of launch. And then by the time everything was said and done, it had surpassed 2 million units, 2 million copies sold of Silent Hill 2 Remake. Maybe up to 3 million. And it got great reviews. People who had loved the original game, there are internet reviewers, Max Darrant, he's a big Silent Hill YouTuber, he's made many Silent Hill and Konami videos. He said he was crying by the end of Silent Hill 2 Remake because he loved it so much. Metal Gear, by comparison, has sold roughly 6 times as many copies in the entire franchise. The Metal Gear franchise is 6 times as profitable as Silent Hill. So what's going to happen here is Delta is going to sell... It's going to sell better than the Silent Hill 2 Remake. There's just no way it doesn't. And I also checked on Amazon, on GameStop. It's topping the charts on their pre-orders, their bestsellers. So this game is going to warrant a renewal in the franchise. It's also going to bump sales of the Master Collection, which features the older games in their sort of HD collection forms. Which is, that game is $30 right now on PS5. I'm going to stream New Game Plus eventually status, don't worry. I wanted to have like a pure unmonitored, I guess, experience initially, but it's going to sell really well. It's going to rejuvenate the franchise. And it's going to bring more attention to the series. And it's getting patched already. The game is not even officially out yet. And we're already getting patches confirmed. So, fundamentally, at a subjective level, speaking from my experience, I had a great time. I was grinning ear to ear when I was focused, when it was just those well-crafted stealth sections. I just was immersed. I felt the bosses were challenging enough this time around. And I do like the fact that control schemes, I played the new style, which is that's kind of they have the legacy style in the game, which is they toss the bone to old time fans, so it sort of evokes the feeling of the very original PS2 release. But I really feel like, and I've read interviews with the creatives, I played the game and I felt what they felt, which is an intense respect and reverence for the original. And to me, it felt like I was playing the game for the first time all over again. Obviously, with the caveat that I got excited because I wanted to see these moments, remade. I was impressed by the visuals. And to see the game's original direction, Kojima's original direction, storyboarding, to see those through the lens of 2025, it was really cool. And it is different than the Resident Evil remakes. It is different than the Final Fantasy remakes because this is a much less severe remake. It is strictly visual. And some controls, but by a wide margin, honestly, I think this game, it's going to sell really well, and when it does, and when it leads into an interest in the original series, I think you could play this, and if it really resonates with you, which it is going to, I have confidence in this remake. in its ability to reach people and strike a chord with them in the same way the original did in 2004. And so I think after that, I could totally see, because of how much the original was preserved here, I could see people becoming fans of even the originals, because the game philosophy is still strong. And I think especially Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, there's so much shared DNA, obviously. So I am excited for that. And I think that also speaks to who I am as a person and why there are these like negative voices kind of dragging down the fandom. It's very similar to the Snyder bots, to be honest. Is this cult personality? Here's the reality of the situation, right? I love Metal Gear Solid, and I understand it is one man's vision, and I've loved that vision. I love the universe. However, Kojima had a team behind him. He had co-writers. Kojima did 90% of the work, let's say. Maybe more, whatever. The difference is irrelevant to me. But Metal Gear, it is not strictly Kojima. It is majorly Kojima. But it's also the people who worked around him and then the next generation, which is what this game sort of embodies, is that effort of the people who were from the original development team of the original series and new blood. And I think they did a great job. But I'm okay with that, because as much as I love Metal Gear, I love plenty of other franchises. I think there are other great games, other great game directors besides Kojima. Do I know who I would trust the series with totally to write, direct, etc.? No. But I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with other takes, other flavors of Metal Gear Solid. I am. We have the Master Collection. Most people, that's really the only games they care about, okay? And eventually we're going to get the Master Collection too. We're going to get Metal Gear Solid 4 and Peace Walker and Portable Ops. We're going to get those on PS5, PC, etc. We're going to get that. So that's the reality of the situation. But people don't want that. The cult personality only what Kojima. But the thing about that is Kojima did not want to continue the series. And he wanted to pass on the series after MGS2. And then every game afterward, he kind of just got dragged in. He kind of got dragged back in. But by the time of Metal Gear Solid 5, he said, this closes the loop. This is it. And I think, honestly, Kojima being forced out of the company, out of Konami, was the break that was necessary. And I say that as someone who loves Metal Gear, but Kojima wanted to leave. He said he was done. He closed the loop. And I think that's worth respecting. Now, Metal Gear can exist without Kojima. The story for Ghost Babel is amazing. It is a great Metal Gear Solid story, script, screenplay. And if we got games of that level, was not written by Kojima, if there were games of that level the next 10, 20 years, I think we'd all be happy. And there just are other writers that can do it. The Metal Gear Solid novelizations by his pseudonym was Nojima as he was writing them. Kojima did not write those novels. He heavily worked with them. He edited them, in a sense, not credited as the editor, but the writer of the novel, went as far to say Kojima was like a co-writer, but he's not the sole writer. And there's already a whole universe of Kojima's writings. We have his screenplays. They have the design bibles for the original games. I really feel like they can make it work. Fans of the series really enjoy Acid 2. A lot of people enjoy big parts of Portable Ops, the story. It can be done. And even if it just becomes something else, I'm fine with that. I want to see where the series goes because Kojima wanted this. Between every entry, he wanted his staff to pick it up for him and for him to do other things, to explore other things. And I'll also say this too, and I personally haven't played it yet because I don't feel like paying $70 for a new game. I haven't played Death Stranding 2. I really like Death Stranding 1. But I haven't played Death Stranding 2, but I haven't seen any clip. I don't know what I couldn't be spoiled about Death Stranding because on Twitter, on YouTube, I don't see anyone talking about it. I don't see it. But a lot of people are talking about Metal Gear Solid in this remake. And I think that speaks volumes. I think there's something to the valid criticisms of a purist should not be ignored. However, you got to take a step back sometimes and be like, am I only saying this because I'm a purist? How much of my criticism is objective, or is it strictly my purist special little universe that I've decided would make it best that I am adhering to? And I feel like in this case, this is the world Kojima wanted. It is. I mean, he talked about making remakes of his games before. He talked about how Metal Gear would outlive him. About how it almost belongs to the fans in a lot of ways. These are all quotes that you can look up. Kojima has said all these things outright. He says that after MGS2, after MGS3, and then after MGS5 in particular, he said he was done with it. He's done. And he's done with it. And he's going to make Physint, and it's going to be, his own, a new Sony-owned Metal Gear, I guess. It'll be his, I don't even know what to say, his version of it. It's just a weird thing to say, right? But that's how I feel about it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the remake. It felt like I was playing it again for the first time. I have one mission left on the Snake versus Monkey mini game mode, but I appreciate they've gone to such attention to detail with this, with the remake. They made little parody skits using the 3D models from the game. They made 3 of those with the new engine, and then they're called Secret Theater. All of the Secret Theater little segments, little shorts from the original are in this game. They have the manual from the HD edition of the multinational version of the HD collection of MGS3. So every region, you can read the manual from every other region. There are dubbing options, so if you wanted to play this game with the Japanese voice actors and the English subtitles, you could, but also for any language. There are multiple visual filters. You can't exactly tweak them. You cannot achieve the visual tone that the original had, the visual tone of the original, but obviously it's a visual overhaul. The game is visually remade, so I just feel like nitpicking and saying it's not the exact colors, it's not the exact lighting. It's it's visually remade, and you can play the original on PC by now. On PC, PS5, you can play that game in its ideal form. Okay, on PC you can mod it, you can do all kinds of crazy things. You can put upscale textures, you can force it into 440p, etc. On PS5, there's nothing to complain about by this point. So you have the original. This game is not supposed to be the original. It is visually updated. It has some quality of life modernizations for new fans, for potential new fans. It feels fresh enough. It feels fresh enough for people who've already played it, or a big segment of the audience, a big segment of people are going to be getting this as well, are people who played the original back in the day and haven't kept up with the series. Maybe they played MGS3 when it came out in 2004. Maybe they then, waited till MGS4 came out, then they played the new one. And then they played Peace Walker and 5, but they didn't, they're not super fans. They're not purists. They're not these cult members. And I love Metal Gear. Metal Gear is like the 1 out of 3 things that I constantly think about. Right? And even that being said, I don't have this purist. I just don't have it, I don't have this purist perspective. If something's fun, if something's enjoyable, if something impressed me, then it doesn't warrant nitpicking to me. Now, here's what they should fix. And you look at all the Digital Foundry complaints. I mean, every single game that they've criticized, it just doesn't materially manifest. Those criticisms do not materially manifest in a pragmatic way, according to fans of those games, according to people who played them, according to people who review them. So they were either, I just have to assume in good faith, they were either patched out, or they're kind of like Digital Foundry. Excuse me. They're doing their job. That's their whole thing, is comparing these like minute little details, these technical details. But that's just not the way that the majority of people operate or consider their purchase or figure if they had fun or not. However, from my personal experience, having played many games, is they definitely need a couple of performance patches, specifically for areas with dense foliage, and a couple of instances where there's heavy rain and gunfire. But there were a lot of scenes that were complete butter smooth 60 FPS that shocked me, honestly. Like very intense visual scenes and the cutscenes, which are not pre-rendered. They're rendered in engine, so it's fair to say a lot of these explosions, a lot of these action scenes, a lot of the boss fights, most of the interior sneaking sequences, they were great. I had a great time. But there were a couple of instances where I'm like, okay, it's certainly playable. It felt like 30 FPS. It felt like 40 FPS. But, and I know people who are playing on console, and these criticisms, they just don't materially manifest. Like me, my playthrough, having played the game many times, the original version, and using a lot of the same tricks and exploits in this new version, I beat the game in around 8 to 9 hours. I can check exactly. I took a screenshot. I beat the game. It took me... Let me see. It took me 8.5 hours to beat the game. To beat the main story the first time through. So, if you play a game for 9 hours, compare that to a YouTube video that maybe for 20 minutes is, and really the first like 15 minutes of that video they're talking about the positives. They're talking about the good effects, the character model, the detail. If you watch other reviews from other channels, other big gaming outlets, they're like, this preserved the original experience. It wasn't an offensive remake. They didn't bastardize the original. They maintained it. They did what they were seeking out to do. That's what a lot of the reviews sound like lately. A lot of the big reviews. But if the past 5 minutes of criticism, if you only focus on that, and if you take it out of the historical context, and you'll say, oh my god, this game is a travesty, it's like, well, every big remake has these same criticisms. And honestly as well, you can go back from the fucking Nintendo Entertainment System, probably the fucking Atari, right? There is not a single game, maybe there's 1% of video games that run perfectly all the time, forever, with no glitches. And sometimes when I hear the criticism about this game in particular, because when Silent Hill 2 Remake came out, these criticisms didn't exist. Like, they just weren't real. You know, like, obviously Digital Foundry talked about it when it came out. But as people were playing it, as people were enjoying it, at launch, that simply was not part of the discussion. That just did not factor in to how people were engaging with that game. It just didn't exist. You know, the frame rate's bad. People were kind of clowning on a couple character models. I know when the first trailers came out that were totally pre-rendered, like it was never supposed to represent the game. People were like, oh, it looks kind of weird, like the facial expressions are off. People were ready to destroy that game because the original is so beloved, but when it came out and the masses got to it, it just didn't matter. And yeah, it is Twitter. It is totally Twitter. But that's really the only like avenue. Like, a lot of the YouTube reviews are positive. But really the only, like, I mean, at this point, the Steam reviews, which would be from people who they got the whatever it's called, the every special edition has its own digital deluxe. They got the digital deluxe and they were able to play it 2 days early. At this point, there's about 2,000 reviews, and it's at a 79% mostly positive review aggregate. And a lot of the reviews there are like, this is, you know, it's very positive, recommended. So Steam so far has got good reviews. Most YouTube reviewers are saying good things. So this is mostly a response to the criticism, because I think it's just very hypocritical. I'm not going to say that, like, again, I have criticisms about the remake, mostly to do with, you know, I just think it needs a couple patches. But otherwise, I had a great time, and I will be playing this game a lot more. I'm excited to see the modding community for it. I'm excited to see, you know, model swaps. I'm excited to see how modular it can get, because the modding scene for the original MGS3, as soon as it hit PC, became pretty vibrant. So I think a more modern game, I imagine, would be more intuitive to mod nowadays. But no, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, no, I've been going on a bit waffling. But that's mostly what I have to say. My next video will hopefully warrant more attention to Metal Gear, I think, as the game comes out as well. It comes out tomorrow officially. And also, I'll say this too. Out of 10, I would say my experience was an 8 out of 10. I think the game is a 10 out of 10 game, but I think if they patch some of the performance problems in a couple of sections, and also I would like them to, you can modify the control scheme a little bit, but you can't map every button to a different button. And I want to see a control scheme that perfectly mirrors the original. But even that is like, I have the original on the PS2, I have the original on the PS3, and I have the original on PC. I also have MGS3 3D. So, you know, I've got plenty of ways to play the game at this point. So that is definitely a nitpick. So there's that. But I guess maybe also the original PS2 game had a duel mode, which was basically just a boss gauntlet. Like, you could pick which bosses to fight. I think that would be cool to be in there. But they really did go above and beyond. Sections that were only in the original game. So Platinum Games made Metal Gear Rising. Like, they made the gameplay, everything like that. Kojima Productions made the story and, like, the character designs, etc. But Platinum, like, programmed it, I guess, is what you would say. They got Platinum Games to totally from the ground up remake a section that was in the original that was then gutted from the HD editions. So there's a section in this game that has been absent for over 20 years since the original, that they then got Platinum Games. This is the second time Platinum Games has collaborated with Metal Gear, was just for this remake, for a small little section. That's crazy attention to detail. Absolutely insane. And it's exciting, because that means Platinum, Platinum and Metal Gear work together. You know, PlayStation Studios also got involved because there's some Astrobot Easter eggs in the in one of the mini games in the remake. No, the story is exactly the same. There are no cutscenes added to this. However, on the Xbox version, they got a couple of voice actors from the first Metal Gear Solid to reprise their roles, which I'm like, that's just so, they just went above and beyond. I really feel like they really did go above and beyond in most ways here. I just feel like there's just a little modern gaming has these problems. It's just games are often a little scuffed at launch, and the game hasn't even launched yet. So even then, it's kind of an unfair criticism. I paid the money to play it early. I'm playing it early. It's not officially out yet, and I mostly had 60 FPS. You know, I would say maybe it was 80% constant 60, 80% of the time. So I really enjoyed it, and it's surreal. It is surreal. When Phantom Pain came out, it was almost 10 years ago to the day, and I stayed up. I bought the PS4 edition, pre-ordered the Ultimate PS4 edition, but it wasn't going to arrive on the actual day. It wasn't going to arrive the second it released or whatever. So I was like, man, I can't wait. So I bought it on Steam, played it the midnight it came out. I played it all night until I went to school. I didn't get any sleep. And then I got home, went to sleep, woke up, kept playing the game. Yeah, I played it on PC. So it is just surreal to me that almost 10 years exactly later, there is a new Metal Gear Solid game. It's baby steps, obviously. It's a remake, but I think a lot of people thought that it would never happen. You know, there was a dark era there where it was pachinko machines. He was in Smash Brothers, which was exciting. Snake, and then there's a couple of Metal Gear characters in Bomberman. But it was like between 2015 and today, basically, you know, in a few hours when it officially drops, it was cooked. But Konami restructured after they got rid of Kojima. And clearly with Silent Hill 2, with this game, Silent Hill F on the way, it's a Konami that's ready to tackle the current AAA gaming market. And it is surreal to me. It is actually surreal. But with all that said, thanks everybody for turning out, all the channel members. Thank you, Vilo, of course, as always, for the 100. Very much appreciate you. I hope you enjoy the game. I hope anybody who is planning on getting the game, who has already gotten it, to enjoy. With all that said, thanks for hearing my crazed rambling, and I'll try to talk about some comic book stuff next time. All right, guys, take care.